Hello everybody and welcome! This is a video that we've actually has been requested for a very long time, which is a tier list for how much we enjoy playing each investigator. Travis did one of these previously. This is my first time doing one. Every year at Christmas, Travis, Brent, and I do a power ranking tier list to kind of check in. Because, I mean, honestly, for me, power level conversations are a lot more interesting than how enjoyable I like playing an investigator. But people requested it. The Travis one, people enjoyed hearing Travis's thoughts, so I think it's finally time to give this a shot here. Let's talk about the tiers. And this is all my own opinion, so it's great. No one can say, hey, Justin, you're wrong. All you can say is, hey, Justin, you're crazy for liking to play this investigator. What the hell's wrong with you? Do you have some sort of weird, like, fetish where you like playing Jim Culver? And the answer to that is obviously yes. It's obviously yes. But it's all my opinions here, so let's just go for a ride. This should be my favorites. So we have my favorites is the top one. A blast to play. So investigators that I like, I mean, my favorites is pretty self-explanatory. A blast to play are investigators that are, well, not my favorites, still, like, really enjoyable to, like, give a shot to. I think fondly of them. There's a lot of decks that I've played with them that I think are really good, and they are just, like, you know, exactly what I want from a game of Arkham. Enjoyable are investigators that I don't dislike, but I don't love either. I just think that they're, like, kind of just enjoyable investigators. I have a lot of good times and memories with them. But there's nothing that really, like, puts them into the tier above or even the tier below, which is kind of dull. These are investigators that I don't hate playing, but they're just kind of, like, on the lower side where they start to become a little bit less enjoyable to play, and I'm kind of just playing them either to try out an idea to see if maybe that'll turn them into an investigator I actually like playing, or alternatively, it makes them into an investigator, like, or if it's like I'm doing it for a challenge or something like that. And then we finally have the I do not like playing them. These are investigators that I'll only play to play them, because I haven't played them in a while, because I do like to play every investigator and kind of like cycle through them. But these are investigators that I don't actually want to play, and I'm only really kind of playing them because I have to, or because I feel like I should, just so I can ensure that I'm keeping up with the conversations and the metas that come with them. And then last but not least, we have not played, which are investigators that I have not played, or, like, I haven't, like, theory crafted and tried to build a deck for and test that deck out. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this! First one up here, we got Roland Banks. A 3/3/4/2 is a reaction after you defeat an enemy, discover one clue at your location, limit once per round. Elder Sign effect is +1 for each clue on your location. I often say that the game would be better if everyone was Roland Banks. And I don't say that, I don't say that because I like playing Roland Banks, but rather I think that the design for Roland Banks is like the perfect Arkham Horror design, right? He does a little bit of everything. None of his stats are particularly great, and the game would probably be in a healthier place. Not that I think it's in an unhealthy place. I think that's a little bit loaded of a statement. Look at me. I can't even not talk about power level when this is a video entirely about fun. But that's just the kind of guy I am. I'm a spike through and through, so it really comes down to that. But the game would be better because there was no fives, because then everyone would have to be scrappy like Roland Banks. And I generally do enjoy scrappier investigators. Roland Bank is very fragile. It's 9/5. Once again, it all comes down to power level for me. Like, that's kind of just like an issue I have. It's kind of just an issue I have. All right, let's take power level out, because that's what we're talking about. We're just talking about the guy. We're talking about the man. We're talking about the message. I don't really enjoy playing Roland Banks that much, evidenced by the fact of how little I actually end up playing him. I think that overall, the man is kind of dull, I think. But also, like, spoiler alert, most of the investigators are at least enjoyable to play. Because I'm still just kind of like playing Arkham, and I'm like theory crafting a new way to win in the most efficient thing I can fathom. My attempts are not always perfect. I think I'm going to put Roland Banks in kind of dull. Mostly just because the guy is kind of dull for me personally. His ability is cool. His ability is fun. But my least favorite card pool is probably Guardian and Mystic. And while I think there's some cool stuff in the Guardian class, I don't think that Roland Banks explores the part of the Guardian class that I actually find fun to play. I don't really have any positive memories playing Roland Banks. I think I played him most recently in the time where Bryn and I did the same collection run through the Circle Undone, which was on Patreon. I don't know if I played Roland or if I played Joe, which is probably not a good sign. Mecha Roland was really fun. Like the Mecha Roland build that Travis, Bryn, and I did, that was really fun. But I can't think like of a fond memory of playing Roland Banks, so I'm going to put him into my kind of dull tier. This is actually great too, because it's going to be already out on YouTube by the time that this video goes live on YouTube. But we're doing recording our top and bottom 5 investigators, and I'm using it for this video. Aren't Joe and Roland the same guy? Absolutely not. Joe Diamond is actually really fun to play. Roland Banks, not so much. All right, next up to Daisy Walker. I don't got a bad thing to say about Daisy Walker. I think she's a blast to play. She has so many fun, different decks that you can build with her. She's also very powerful, which I do enjoy. Power is a very fun part for why I like playing an investigator if they are not based into my playstyle, which you'll definitely see as we start putting this together, where playstyle comes in for it as well. But I think Daisy Walker is just like a great investigator. She has 5 in a stat, which I just said was bad for Roland Banks, but means that it's very fun because it's very easy to just win with it. You can definitely do crazy things with her in builds that are like really strong, but you can also just like do builds with her that are just really fun and really explore her card pool in a very fun way. I think she has a great card pool. Yeah, and she just gets like new stuff to play with all the time, and then she also just gets stuff that's like it appeases the winner in me, which is just Grim Memoir, right? Like Grim Memoir with Daisy is kind of like, oh, you're Rex now, right? And like I think that is that's really fun. She's a great investigator. She continues to get good stuff. She also like never really feels the 5, which is kind of lucky for her, unlike Roland, who feels his 5 in his sanity all the time. I love Daisy Walker. She's really fun. She's very powerful, and she's a good time. Next up, we got Skids O'Toole, who is still an investigator I do not like playing. However, a little caveat on this. I have not played Skids O'Toole since Hemlock Vale's come out. So that might actually change my thoughts on him, because I do think that Skids O'Toole did get some nice tools in Feast of Hemlock Vale that I think are very interesting. So this is like, I'm going to be putting him in that I do not like playing him, because every time, I can't shake the feeling that the worst time I ever felt playing Arkham is when I played a Skids O'Toole deck, and that is something that I cannot escape. The only time that I was like, I think this actually might be a game I hate, was when I played a Skids O'Toole game. And while that was just with Dunwich and Core, which, you know, Skids was not great with Dunwich and Core, when a man makes you feel like that, you really can't forgive him. So that's something that stayed with me from top to bottom. Worse than the solo Wendy Forgotten Age run? Yes. Yeah. It's the worst I've ever felt playing Arkham was when I played Skids O'Toole. It actually, can I be real, was the first time that I introduced Eric to Arkham Horror. Eric actually played Arkham Horror back when it first was coming out. But Eric was like, this is awful. And yeah, it was. Mostly because I was the goon and I was playing Skids O'Toole, right? It's one of those things where, yeah, I already said the card pool. The card pool was Corset and Dunwich, so like very early on in the game. And while Skids, I think, has improved vastly since then, I'm not going to pretend he hasn't, and I think Hemlock Vale was notably a very big boost to him. The man made me want to stop playing Arkham, so I can't shake that feeling. This man has hurt me, and I'm not ready to move past the trauma that the dude has given me. So I'm going to put him in the... I do not like playing them. Agnes Baker, what's not to like? Sorry, what's not to like? Yeah, that is the thing. She has a good 5 stats. She has a great stat line. She has a good health and sanity pool. She has a good ability. She has a great card pool. So I'm going to just put her into enjoyable. As I said, Mystics are probably like my least favorite class alongside Guardian. And I think that with that said, I think that Agnes Baker explores the Mystic card pool in a way that I think is actually kind of interesting compared to some of the other Mystics we're going to be talking about later. Yeah, I think that she is a very enjoyable investigator to give a shot to, and I like playing her. But I don't hate playing her. So, I mean, if I don't love playing her, I don't hate playing her, so she's just going to live in enjoyable. I like, like the Peter Sylvester thing is always a good time, right? It's really fun when you can cheese the game. Obviously, in Pats Carcosa, she has that extra little twist on her. But I think, like, generally, is that the Mystic... Sorry, that... she doesn't really get new pieces, right? Like, when's the last time that, like, we looked at a card and we were like, oh, this is, like, perfect for Agnes Baker, right? That it's one of those things that, like, she's just, like, it's like Daisy, yeah, like, as they're saying in chat, that Daisy gets, like, she just gets, like, new pieces all the time that are fun to play with. So, like, the character is, like, constantly growing. And I know I'm, like, saying, like, exactly, like, the opposite for Skids, but Skids has some extra weight on him that he can't move past. It's not his fault, it's my fault. But Agnes Baker, like, I don't really, like... The Mystic card pool, I don't think, is expanding in a way that's interesting enough to really boost her up for me to the next tier. Wendy Adams, I think that she is also... I think she also is enjoyable. Her card pool is really fun to play with, right? Like the Survivor Rogue. I think that she would be fun to play with the British Bulldog from Hemlock Vale. I think that could be a really fun time. I mean, she has a great card pool. Like, Survivor 05, Rogue 02 is a very, very, very fun card pool. You can do a lot of janky things with her, too, that are, like, also, like, still pretty powerful. Her ability is really cool. I think that, like, we're, like, a few cards away from hopping into the discard card from hand build, being, like, in a really great place, right? Where... you can just, like, really, like, really do great things with it. Because it's, like, there's pieces of it, but I think we're still missing, like, 1 or 2 to make it, like, a really, like, perfectly rounded deck to really get there. So I think, like, that is kind of, like, what I'm personally missing from Wendy Adams to push her up a bit higher. However, she did get some cool things in Hemlock Vale that I'm excited to try with her. And that's kind of, like, where my enjoyableness for an investigator comes through. Where it really kind of just depends on what I can do, new things I can try with them. That once again, how well can I win with it, right? Agnes got the Sparrow Mask, I suppose she did, but that doesn't really do anything, right? Like that doesn't actually like do anything, you know? Like it just like helps you not lose as opposed to win, which is not really interesting. Even Drain Essence. I don't think Drain Essence is for Agnes Baker. It's for Parallel Agnes, who is a blast to play, but I think Agnes Baker not so much. If it moved horror, now we're talking, right? I don't think there's anything that's like interesting for Agnes Baker. Even these examples, I don't think they do it. They don't move the needle. I know I said this wasn't a power ranking video, but it's a lot of it is going to come down into the power of it because that's what I find most interesting. Oh yeah, Drain Essence is really good for Parallel Agnes. She got some new toys. So that's the core set. Let's move on to the Dunwich Legacy. I think Zoey Samaras is a blast to play. I like her less than Daisy. I also think I like Agnes more than Wendy. I am going to actually level these in order. I usually don't do this for tier lists, but I think I'm going to do it for this one. This is Zoey Samaras is actually, you know what? I think I'm not gonna do by order. That's just too much. Maybe I'll do it like up here in my favorites when we're done, but we'll get there. So the Dunwich investigators get a boost because of their Dunwich deck building. It makes them like actually kind of like just kind of good at doing fun things with their card pool that also can be very powerful. And I see someone saying, why is Zoey Samaras at higher ability is literally gain 1 resource? Listen, motherfucker, I got some news for you. When you're a Spike, the only thing you fucking care about is how efficient your ability is. And her ability is insanely efficient. It's just fucking economy, man. There's nothing better that you can do in this game than just round out your economy and make it like freaking perfect. Every time you draw an enemy, like if you had a card that was like, if there was an investigator that was like, you draw treachery, gain 1 resource, that would just be a fantastic ability because now the Mythos phase is like softer as hell because you're also getting like extra money on top of it. It's so good to get economy. And that's why I think Zoey Samaras is also enjoyable to me because not only is her card pool really cool, her stat line works for it really well. Her Zoe's Cross is just like a dream and really fun to play with. Her ability just rounds it out, which means that you can actually just like be good at what you're trying to do. It's one of those things that it's just like you just get to do what you want, and she makes it really easy for you to do what you want. So the experience of playing her is very fun. You also can do a huge number of builds with Zoey, going back again to the Dunwich Splash. I think it was my blind run of Alice in Wonderland. I played an Underworld support deck of Zoey, and it was like a little bit janky, right? I mean, it's janky for me, which is not. If Brandon would be like, this is not janky at all. Where's the shit that makes this super janky? It's one of those things that like you can do cool things with that 5 splash cards, which I think are really good. But yeah, she's a blast to play. Like, I don't think she's in my favorites, and she definitely, I think, would be like in the lower end if I was ranking this. But I for me personally, Zoey is above enjoyable. Rex Murphy, this motherfucker is an absolute blast to play. He's not one of my favorites, just kind of because he's not. I had to be very picky with my favorites because I'm only going to try to choose 5. I'm only going to try to choose 5 throughout this whole video. But Rex Murphy is just like so powerful that like when you're playing him, you're like, what the hell? I'm God. And I played him actually recently twice. I played him at the end of the first gauntlet and at the start of the second gauntlet. And this man knows how to get things done. You just like slap a magnifying glass on him, you get a Dr. Milan Christopher into play, you buy a higher education, and like you won the campaign. Congratulations. Like you've done it. You've done the thing that you need to do. And then like everything else in your deck is all about just making yourself more consistent at doing what you need to do, which is doing which is just like getting clues. And I love getting clues. My favorite action in this game is probably just basic investigate. If I had to like choose one action that is my favorite, it's I don't have Parallel Rex on here. Well, sucks to suck, Parallel Rex. I forgot to add him this morning. I had to remake all this. That's why my stream was a bit late. But this man is just win the game, and I like winning the game. It's very fun for me to win the game. And I think there's a lot of things you can do, and builds even with it that are like a little bit less try-hard, that are still very enjoyable to play, and I still think are also pretty powerful. Jenny Barnes, I do not like playing Jenny Barnes. Mostly because, Okay, I'm gonna sound like a bit of a hypocrite here. Now that I'm like really just taking this for a moment, I'm gonna sound like a little bit hypocritical here. But this is my list video. I'm allowed to be hypocritical. It's only one extra resource a turn. I know. I know that's the kind of the issue here with Zoey, but the problem is that there's a big difference between one resource in the Rogue class and one resource in the Guardian class. So like it is, people are gonna be like, but Justin, you just said with Zoey you love that one extra resource. Yeah, that's because like Guardians, like they can take anything. They'll take anything they can get. Jenny has some other issues on top of it though that makes her less enjoyable to me, and that is that if you look at her stat line, she has all threes. It's not a surprise to me that most Jenny defenders are Johnnies. It's not a surprise to me. I've never seen like my style of gamer come up to me and say saying that like they love Jenny. Like I've never really seen that from a Spike, because I think most of them are just like, hey, I don't really enjoy playing Jenny because there's not much there to do. And even like when you look at Jenny, is that Preston, when we get to him, is actually just like a more fun version of Jenny Barnes, in my opinion. I do know that there is that there's like some big fans of the Green Man Medallion Jenny, and there's one it was Nick. It's always Nick. It's just who always has like talks about this one deck that they played or someone played that I'm always like, that does sound like actually pretty fun. It was like a Jenny deck that used Green Man Medallion, and at the start of the campaign just like grinded the hell out of Green Man Medallion, and then later in the campaign teamworked all of the exciting things they bought to their teammates. And that does sound like an actual interesting thing for the Green Man Medallion. I've had a lot of people tell me that like the Green Man Medallion Jenny like breaks the game, and I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that like you remember the high end and then like forget about the times where like your teammates had to carry your slack to get to the point where you could be in the high end, as opposed to Rex, Zoey, Daisy, who are just like always in that high end and don't need to worry about that low end because they just don't fucking have it, right? However, Jenny might still have a chance to get up into this kind of doll tier, because once again, I only want 5 down here, so she might get bumped up, because I don't like hate playing her, but I don't enjoy playing Jenny Barnes. She's kind of just like there and hanging out and having a good time. But yeah, it's the 3s that really get there to me. But there are some 3s that I think are actually kind of poggy, which we'll get to in, I don't know, in a few hours from now, maybe. I mean, we're working pretty quick. I feel like we're almost done, right? I feel like we're almost done this whole thing. We're only 23 minutes in the video. I think I'm killing it. Jim Culver, my boy. All right. This is going to be a little bit surprising, but I think Jim Culver is only enjoyable to play. The reason why I like Jim Culver is because of his theme. And there is like 3 levels of looking at an investigator for me, right? There's the one that's first and foremost, which is my power level of the perceived investigator. Then it's like the theme of the investigator. How much do I like the character's theme? And then that actually is even above how much I enjoy playing them. Because Jim Culver is probably like my S+ tier in terms of his story, his style, his theme. But that doesn't mean I necessarily enjoy playing Jim Culver, because like Skids, I've had a lot of moments where Jim Culver has crashed and burned for me, and I would not say that that has been an enjoyable experience. However, he's also had moments where Jim has done the things that I wanted him to do, and it was very, very, very fun to play with Jim Culver that way. But most of the time, I think that like he kind of just like sits in this enjoyable section for me, because I think he would be so much more exciting to play if he wasn't Dunwich. I know that like that's a plus for Zoey, but it's one of those things where I just wish I could have like 5 more Survivor cards in my deck, right? And just be like the Patrice deck building, the 05, 02, well, not the Patrice. Who's the Mystic? Who's the Mystic Survivor? Who the fuck is it? Oh, it's Agnes. It's right here. She's right here. She's hanging out 2 pieces away from me. I literally just talked about her. I think that he would explore this. And I mean, I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I'll scream it from the mountains that I think that you could survive the 05, 02 being on 2 investigators. Because I do think that the abilities can actually separate them quite a bit from one another. Do I think that Agnes and Jim are different enough? Probably not. No. But I do think that you could still get away with that kind of thing. Like maybe even like limit it, right? Where it's only like maximum of 10 in the deck when Agnes can kind of go a bit nuts. But that's just kind of like my thoughts on that. Next up, we got Ashcan Pete. I've built a lot of Ashcan Pete decks. I think Ashcan Pete is a blast to play. I don't think he's one of my favorites, but it's one of those things where I think Ashcan Pete is a very, very fun investigator. There's a ton of builds you can do with him. I've literally built like 3 never fail Ashcan Pete decks, which sounds like why would you play like the exact same deck 3 times? That's just because like I find it like a very fun deck to play. It's just like trying to just grind out efficient value through the game and just like, I'm not here to lose, and you're not going to win, but I'm going to take some time to get there. It's a lot different than, like, the explosive stuff you can do with Daisy and Rex, but it's still a very enjoyable experience of winning the game. I like Ashcan Pete. Duke's really fun. You know, he's probably one of my most played investigators. I think just, like, generally across the whole board from beginning to end. He did come out in Dunwich. And, again, his Dunwich Splash can let you do a lot of fun things. Like Wendy, I think he's like 1 or 2 cards away from really popping off with the discard build, and onto an extra level, which I think is going to be really cool. It's really fun. Good guy. All right, on to the Path to Carcosa with Mark Harrigan. Mark Harrigan, good old sexy Mark Harrigan. I'm torn between a blast to play and enjoyable. And I think I'm going to put this guy in a blast to play. Yes. I have a lot of good memories of playing with Mark Harrigan. I've done a lot of builds. I did a shotgun deck with him once. That was a really good time. I did when Eric's blind run, which was just like throwing my 45 Thompson at people, was a fun time. Mark Harrigan is usually investigator I go to for my gun builds. Him and Leo, I think, are really fun to actually like play gun builds with. I generally like to do melee with other investigators, mostly because like Mark Harrigan has the card draw to make it so that you can just like play a bunch of guns and find what you want because of his built-in card draw. And I like Leo for guns because he can find the rogue ammo cards to refill his stuff. But most other ones I go to melee with. Like Zoey Samaras, I pretty much always build melee because she has a knife in her art. It's telling you what to do. And I think like everyone else is kind of just like not great with it. Even Tommy. I think that Tommy, like while you can build around Becky, I think he lacks like the card draw that Mark can provide that Tommy's lacking, because Tommy actually has like negative card draw because he's shuffling cards back into his deck. So that's why I think that even with Tommy, melee weapons are the way to go. But Mark lets me actually like build a gun deck that I think is actually like worth the time in Guardian. So like he gets the extra points for that. His ability is also like really fun. It's enjoyable to draw a card on your ability and then heal that damage off and play the game of like risk reward, where I can keep getting punched. I keep punching myself in the chest, but I have to like cure those wounds. I think that's a really fun thing to do. Yeah, I love me some sexy Mark Harrigan. I think he's a very fun investigator play, and I think there's a lot of cool builds. The tactic pool, he's a trait-based investigator, which I think is probably, like the 0502 is really good, but I think the trait-based is the most, is the deck building that can see the biggest change for a character. Look at Rita for an example for that, for how the tricks work. I think that Mark Harrigan does a really good job of that with the tactics. He already got like pushed to the limit in just Hemlock Vale. Like he usually gets like one tactic every set that allows you to look at Mark Harrigan and go, what am I going to do with this, right? It's kind of like Daisy, where Daisy improves because she keeps getting like tomes or seeker cards to play with, or even like mystic cards to play with in terms of the Astral Mirror. Mark Harrigan is the same. He always just gets like a new toy every cycle that you're like, we can do something with this. We can do something with this. We can at least try it out. Yeah, because I mean, like in Scarlet Keys, he got Kick in the Hornet's Nest. He has Active Desperation from it as well. Like I'm pretty sure you could look at every cycle and find a tactic that gives a reason to play in Mark Harrigan, which is, I think, a really cool thing, especially when he actually like only has level 0 for his tactics, because you actually don't feel it, because you get so many like good choices. You know what, I actually kind of, I mean, this isn't the video for it, but I mean, like, because practice makes perfect in Dream Eaters. Circle Undone at Active Desperation, right? Circle Undone is Active Desperation. It's just like really good for like a level 0. It's, you don't feel the limit on it. It's kind of insane. All right, Minh Thi Phan. All right, Min, I think you are probably one of my favorites. I think she's gotta be, right? I think, like Jenny, she might get bumped down into a blast to play, but I love me. I love me some Minh Thi Phan. She is probably the investigator. I mean, well, she is, if you actually look at it, because we have all the ones here. She's the first skill-based investigator to come out of the game. And skills is my favorite way to play Arkham. I love slinging skills. I love the support that she provides as well. I think she was also, as you can see, looking through all this, she's the first investigator that is actually like a support investigator, where everyone else before was kind of just doing their own thing. But Min was the first investigator that actually like was like, hey, we care about other people, right? Like we actually care about the other investigators you're playing with, and I really enjoy that skill-based stuff that comes with it. She also has my favorite card pools. I love Survivor and I love Seeker. Those are my two favorite card pools to play with. With that said, Min is she's fallen out of favor for me recently. However, she did get some new toys, like the Persistence thing seems really good with her. I'm excited to try out a Min deck with Persistence. And I think that she's kind of, unfortunately, just stagnated a little bit with the card pool. But hopefully we can see, with Persistence, maybe it gives me some more life with going there. What are your thoughts on if Min's signature card affect her and her card ability were swapped? Honestly, I don't think that's necessary. I think her ability is good. And I think it's relevant, and I think that she has enough card draw that she can find it if she needs to. And I think also that just people are a little bit babies and they want everything to be perfect. I think her ability's fine. Like, her ability's fine as is, and her analytical mind is also fine as is. I think there could be something said for, like, I think that most investigators like Ashcan Pete would be more enjoyable if their signatures were always in play, right? But it's one of those things that, like, that's a different conversation than that, because I think that her ability is fine as it is. All right, on to Sefina Rousseau. Sefina Rousseau. I don't have any memories of her, you know? I don't really have any thoughts on Sefina Rousseau. So I think she's going to live in kind of the Roland Banks tier of kind of dull. I think what it comes down to is that, like, the experience, the idea of playing Sefina Rousseau is always different for me than the actual practicality of playing Sefina Rousseau. And like, yeah, she's a Bryn investigator. She is not a Justin investigator. This is not Justin's, like, style of doing things. It's not my way, right? So I don't think that I'm able to make Sefina sing in the way that, like, Bryn can make her sing. So it's not really, like, something that I like doing. I think she's cool, and I think, like, once again, like, if I could, like, talk about her, like the idea of her is, like, enjoyable or blast. But all my experience with Sefina Rousseau, even when I did the double Sefina deck, the big money Sefina deck, it was really cool. The thing that I have with Sefina Rousseau is the same thing that I have with Diana Stanley, and in some ways previously Calvin Wright, where I don't like that a chunk of your deck kind of needs to be a certain thing in order for you to actually like be able to function, right? I don't like when, like, certain aspects of it is decided for me, because I'd rather those cards be, like, something else if I can swing it, or alternatively just, like, it's one of those things that adds to the fragility of the character, where, like, things can go wrong depending on how you mulligan. Because someone chirped me when I said this, where I said, like, Sefina's mulligan is actually worse than a regular mulligan. Because they were like, seeing 10 cards is not as good as seeing 13. And, like, remember the person was like, yeah, what do you mean? That sounds so stupid. 13 is better than 10. It's higher. Yes, it is, but you have to take a lot into account, right? Whereas Sefina has a bigger deck size. She has 3 signature assets that are also eating up your deck size, versus, like, a tight-ass motherfucking mulligan with, like, a Zoey or a Rex or a Daisy, who all mulligan really well. I actually find that Sefina's mulligans are worse because of the limitation she has on her mulligan compared to the size of her deck, because her deck is freaking ginormous, right? And I think just for me, she ends up being a worse experience than she is a better experience. But I think she's really cool. Like, I think the theme of her, again, is, like, up here. It's like Jim, right? But, like, I think in practicality, I have more of a dull time playing Sefina than I actually have a good time. Hey, what's there to say about Akachi? I'm just gonna put her in enjoyable. It's not particularly exciting, right? Like, her ability is kind of dull. But it's... she's just, like, there's nothing wrong with her, right? It's... the extra uses on your charges is cool. There's some fun stuff you can do, right? Like, I think the thing that's making it more enjoyable was there was a patron who brought... who brought an Akachi deck with an empty vessel. And that was a really cool deck that's, like, uniquely hers. So, like, that gives me bonus points for her, because I think that is fun to do that, right? Like, and that's, like, she gets the extra charge on it, and then, like, you can do that kind of stuff with it, and you go, like, a nice combat Akachi. You can play with the swords really nice. I wish that she, like, had, like, 4 fist and 2 foot. However, this is going to be something that is a running trend for most mystics. I wish that there was a mystic with 4 fist. right? I think that would be actually like a good thing. And I'm kind of just like, each new Mystic that comes out, if there's another Mystic with 4 brain and 4 book, I'm gonna scream. Like, my head's gonna explode, right? We need... Imagine Jim with 4 fists. That would actually be pretty sick. That would be pretty sick. Watch the next Mystic be Gloria? Ah, fuck. It probably is, isn't it? But, like, I just need... We need that... We need a 4-fist Mystic, I think, because there's so many cool cards in the Mystic class that we're kind of just missing to really get there. Yeah. But Akachi's fine. She is kind of dull, but she also has, like, as D-Scarpack said in chat, also has, like, Decorated Skull 3, right? Like, there's things you can do. Her with the lightsabers, the Enchanted Blade 3 in Mystic are also, like, really fun. There's cool stuff you can do with her that I think makes her enjoyable to play. All right. Will Yorick, my man, is a blast to play. He's really fucking fun. You can do so many cool things with him and also just be like really powerful at the same time. Like, you can do so many, like, I did, like, a Blessed build. I've seen Bryn do a lot of things. He actually plays Knife reliably and makes it efficient, which is, like, really cool. Every asset, just, like, you know, you can look at Will Yorick. He can now, I think you could build, like, a really good, Clue deck to go with it, which I think is really exciting. Like, you can actually, like, now with Matchbox, Old Keyring, you could do some really fun stuff with Will Yorick. And you can just, like, keep hitting people with a shovel. He can play Gravedigger Shovel. Like, he can play, like, janky cards and actually make them good, which is kind of like the Johnny in me that's, like, singing about that, which I think is really fun. But overall, the dude's just very powerful. The strongest I ever felt in Arkham with Will Yorick was my Blessed deck that I played with him. And I really... really enjoy him. I love watching Bryn play him. I love seeing what Bryn can cook up. And, like, Will Yorick always gets new toys to play with. Mostly because, like, I think, like, he personifies the survivor archetype, like, just really perfectly. He is the survivor guardian. And that's why he's going to keep getting pieces, because so many things in Survivor care about assets discarding themselves. So, like, all of it shoots up in value. The reason he's not top tier is because it's missing that extra spice that I think makes it actually, like, really enjoyable to me. And what's that spice? I mean, probably skill cards. Let's be real. Or, like, an actual, like, song and dance that goes beyond just value, right? Like, you can get value out of it, but it's about, like, optimizing your turn to get the most value out of it. And with Will Yorick, it's actually pretty easy, right? You just kill the enemy. It's missing that last little thing that makes me be like, oh, right? Like, that makes me go really want to play Will Yorick. Lola Hayes, honestly, this lady is enjoyable to play. And I know that's crazy, but I think the new taboo... It did an important thing. Oh, it's not a new taboo at this point now. It's actually like a year and a half old, maybe even 2 years with the way time works. It made it so that she no longer has Oppenheimer's atomic bomb hiding in her deck anymore, you know? It loses the fear of all that, and you can actually, like, functionally play a deck with Lola Hayes. I don't think it's good, but I do think that it is actually, like, kind of enjoyable because her ability is obviously her deck building. And while there are still limitations in regards to what you can play each turn, I think it's a lot more open than it was before. The ability to emergency switch is also really cool. There might have been the ruling about how you can't, like, change during a test to do something. And if it is, I don't agree with that ruling, and if it's not in the FAQ, I don't have to. Did Slime Lady not obsolete her? Nah, man. Fucking Susie sucks ass. Susie and the Barkham investigators aren't on this list because they're not real. They ain't real. If someone actually came to me and wanted to play Susie in a campaign, I would say, sorry, that's not real. I'm not going to play with Susie. Because, like, it's not real. It's not. You're playing roulette, and I don't think that's why we're here. But yeah, Lola Hayes is, she's not great. She's like on the low end of enjoyable. Susie sucks ass and you don't want to talk about her, you don't like her. Both. I don't like Susie. I think she's cool, but I think when it comes to actual discussion on the game, I don't think she's real. She's not real. She was, she's a cool area that the designers could explore, and I think that that's really cool. That they were able to do that, and I actually honestly support more of it. If they wanted to make more weird, wacky investigators, like just for fun, I think that's great. But I do think that, unlike parallel investigators, I don't consider them to be legit. It's like Barkham. I view them as kind of like they're joke investigators. Leo Anderson, honestly, this old man is a blast to play for me. His card pool is incredible. And it's, his ability is not why I play him. His ability is cool, but it's not what I'm looking for in Leo Anderson. I'm looking at his card pool, which is like pretty damn sick, and also his stat line, which is also really cool to play with as well. It's a strong stat line. It's very strong. And you just get like bonus value on top of it. You just play allies, you put them into play. You can do a lot of different builds with your allies, but mostly because, like Mark Harrigan, he can do a lot of cool things with like guns that are uniquely to him that he is able to do. There was the Leo Anderson M1918 Bard deck that I played through Darkham recently. By recently, once again, I mean like last year. That was a very enjoyable experience. There was a time where I actually was playing 3 Leo decks at the same time, and all 3 Leo decks were incredibly different from one another. Leo Anderson also has the Brass Knuckles, the Knuckle Duster reliable deck that I brought through Carcosa once. That was a really fun experience. So, like, I have lots of fun memories with my boy Leo Anderson. Guy's really cool. Ursula Downs, I'm gonna put her into enjoyable. I don't think she's a blast to play. I do play Ursula Downs a lot. Mostly when she's like, her and Zoey are like usually my 2 investigators that I bring to a custom campaign for the first time. Just because they're like good. Right? That they're able to just get the job done and just be efficient while doing it. Ursula's ability is kind of like a baby Rex Murphy ability, which makes sense because like deduction is just, the concept of an extra clue, like the concept of a deduction is a great way to measure the ability of an investigator. So it's kind of like that. She's basically just like an extra investigate every turn. Likewise, how Roland Banks is a deduction when you defeat an enemy. But I think the things that are making like her really pop into the next level is that it feels like her unlike Mark, who has a really good trait splash. She doesn't even have a trait splash. She has a trait deck building, and honestly, it's kind of invisible. I know there are things you can do with it, but most of the time, she's kind of just like, more often than not, better without it, which is really like not what you want. Because she got a relic in the news cycle, right? Was there a relic that was like actively good in Hemlock Vale that we were like, hey, that's really nice for her? The Rod. Yes, yeah, the Rod. Yeah, and that's cool, but at the same time, like, I think like Luke Robinson can just do it better, right? Like Luke Robinson can still just do that better. When like there's in my mind, not much better for Mark Harrigan when it comes to like act of desperation. He's really good at it, right? Eyes of Illusia. I see that Kappa there. So like that's the thing, right? I think she just is like missing something that's gonna like make her pop. Is Bryn and Travis always joke everything. Is this gonna be the difference Ursula needs? And notably, especially Travis, I always love when it happens. Whenever Travis shit talks Ursula, the Ursula defenders come out of the woodwork. That always makes me laugh when that happens. Well, I'm not there. I do relate to that thought about Ursula, right? I do relate to that thought about Ursula. Can she play Brunicax? Yeah, she can. You just have to get the relic bonus, right? But, like, you have one fist. Why not just play, like, Runic Axe on an investigator that's, like, good with it? But there's a Runic Axe upgrade that gives it relic, right? I'm pretty sure. It's the one that reduces its cost. Okay. Finn Edwards. Oh, what the hell are you doing here? Finn Edwards. I love this guy. Where am I going to put him? I'm just, like, he's gonna, no matter what, his floor is blast to play. So, like, this is his floor. I'm just trying to decide if he's one of my favorites or not this year. I've been playing a lot of Finn decks that have been really enjoyable. I think I'm going to put him in blast. I think I'm going to put him in a blast to play. I think he's really fun. He's very fun. But I think the thing keeping him out of my favorites is that I think his card pool sucks ass. I think that, like, they made a choice. And unfortunately, I think that choice wasn't great in retrospect. If he had 4 fists, I mean, he has a killer stat line. If you know what, let's just give him an extra stat into fist. I'd be a little bit more interested. But like, he can play guns really well. Like, I'm not going to knock the guns. Obviously, like, dirty fighting works really well with Finn Edwards. He's just a really cool character, and there's a lot of really cool builds you can do with him that I think make him very enjoyable to play. It's just a question of, like, it's like Clean Sneak, man. What happened with Clean Sneak? What happened with that card? Right? What, like, why? Why is it 4 experience? Why is it 4 experience? Like, why? It's a Finn and Rita card. Like, and the card's not even that good. If it was 3 experience, I still think the card is also just, like, not even that good. Yeah, and also, like, Finn with British Bulldog is also, like, another great thing to do as well. I don't get the whole thing with that Clean Sneak, man. I don't. I'd also, like, love to see more illicit cards that aren't rogue, because, like, I understand they're, like, it's one of those things where a lot of rogue classes are illicit, so he's kind of just like rogue. Like, the illicit 05 is kind of like rogue 05 in a way, with like restriction on it. But I still think that we should get a few more somewhere else. I do think that Finn's probably going to get a good boost in this next cycle if the rumors or the message at the end of the Hemlock guide is true about what the next cycle is going to be. I think Finn will really enjoy that. Father Mateo. I think he's kind of dull. Yeah. I think the man's just kind of dull. Like, I respect that he got some cool pieces to play with in Hemlock Vale. which is enough to potentially put him up to enjoyable. However, with all that said, I haven't played those yet, so I don't really have a way to put it into perspective. However, I do like the new meta joke that we have where with Father Mateo is looking for Satan, and the only one of the auto fails is actually Satan, and all the other ones are like lesser demons. And he has to find Satan. He can't find the false Satan. He needs to find the real Satan. I think that's going to be a fun little meta joke to go with for Father Mateo going forward. I think his ability could probably also have been like Min's and scale with the number of players. I think that would actually be like kind of okay. With the Hemlock Veil and like all of McBride and the Broken Diadem, I think there's some cool stuff you can do with him. And like he just got a bunch of new blessed cards too that I think that he's going to be able to like take advantage of, which I think is really neat. But I think overall Father Mateo is still just kind of a dull investigator. He's there too. In a group of 4 players, 2 with blesses and 2 with cursed decks can survive with only Hemlock cards. Like Hemlock and Corset? Probably, yeah. I think anything can happen. Kelvin Wright. I think the guy's enjoyable. He's mostly enjoyable once I had the perspective shift of... he's a really fun clue investigator in Survivor, using a good chunk of the Survivor staple clue getting cards to mitigate his ability, and you actually just like his ability is a bonus. It's not something you seek out. Really changed Kelvin Wright for me, because what that did, it allowed me to not have the same restriction that he had before then for me, which is like the Sefina and the Diana restriction, where a good chunk of your deck space is belonging to keeping you alive. It's one of those things that like it became a lot more enjoyable when you didn't have a section of your deck being about keeping you alive, because you're not seeking out death anymore, and that really kind of changes things out. You can just run like a normal human amount of soak as opposed to this like crazy amount of soak or like healing that you would need to run before this. So keeping him like in that, when that shifted my perspective, made him a lot more enjoyable for me. Before that, he would have been kind of dull. But I think he's an enjoyable investigator, so we're going to put him up there. All right, on to Circle Undone. Look at that. We still got a lot left, don't we? We're going to have a pizza break halfway through this video, YouTube, so get ready for that. Well, YouTube, you won't see it, but Twitch will see it. Carolyn Fern. Carolyn Fern. I have nothing against her, but I also don't particularly love her, so I'm going to put her into enjoyable. Yeah, I don't really have like too much to say about Carolyn. Other than like, I mean, like, obviously her deck building's really fun to play with, right? But that doesn't really like do too much for me, because the gameplay loop and the reward of one resource, while cool and helpful, doesn't really like... It's like the difference between Carolyn and Zoey looking at the same sort of thing. With Zoey, I get this by just playing the game. With Carolyn, I need to like devote deck space and time to getting that extra resources, which is good. It's a good ability. Like, her ability is very good. And there's a lot of cool things you can do, and like the healing is getting better, so it's like more well-rounded. You can do a lot with it. It's still just kind of like just fine for me. In comparison to like Vincent Lee, who I think has, when we get to him, he has a lot more of an enjoyable gameplay loop that can come with it. But I think she's fun, but she's not like fun enough for me to do a cartwheel about, if that makes sense. While other investigators make me do cartwheels. Speaking of investigators that make me do cartwheels, Joe Diamond is one of my favorite investigators to play. I love me some Joe Diamond. For a multitude of reasons. One is because I like flexing. Flexing is my personal favorite way to play Arkham. It's really rewarding to be able to solve a puzzle of how can I best use my resources, to best use my resources to solve the threats that come my way and that are inflicting on the board, and how I can save people. And do things. Oh, I'm gonna take a little sidebar here. So I was recording last night, and I was playing with Dr. Charles West, and I brought that motherfucker in as a meme. But that guy dealt 5 damage throughout the whole scenario, which is actually like pretty good for a level 0 card. I thought I was just like memeing on that guy, but that MFer dealt 5 damage. I was playing the steady-handed asset because I feel like you need to build around it, but that guy surprised me. Like, I don't know. I might like the jury might still be out. Like, he might be like Henry Wan, where sometimes he's like through the roof, and then sometimes he's like literally sucking muddy water out of a puddle. But Dr. Charles West, I was like, I put in you here into meme, and you actually did it. You actually like did it for me. I also like the song and dance of Joe Diamond when it comes to How Can I Not Die. I think that's a very fun way to play and like how to build optimally for, like, how do I mitigate my weaknesses while not spending too much deck space to just not lose? How can I turn my not lose into win, right? So Joe Diamond's very enjoyable. And then the thing that's the most enjoyable about Joe Diamond is obviously his hunch deck, because it means that at the start of each investigator phase, you get a new piece to the puzzle to play with to try to build the most optimal turn. And that's what I love a lot in Arkham, which is how can I build my most optimal turn. Preston Fairmont, if you asked me like a year or two ago, he would have been up in here. I think, though, the man is kind of just settled into enjoyable. Big money is cool and all, but I think that it's one of those things where I have like a new big money bay that's like taking up a lot of my time. Yeah, like, I'm also a bit mad at Preston right now. Him and I are fighting. Can anyone know why Preston and I are fighting? Because I've brought it up before. And it might be because he's taken a certain deck building hostage, and a very cool deck building where you get an idea and you're like, oh my god, I got this, I need like a rogue 03 card, like a rogue level 3 card and a survivor level 1 card. Who can do that? It's Preston, and Preston can't do crap with that. And I want them, please, just make another Rogue 05 Survivor 02. Likewise with another Survivor 02, Survivor 05 Mystic 02. We need him. We need him. Just give the card pool would love it. The card pool would love it. So like I'm kind of a little bit mad at Preston right now. But I think he is still enjoyable to play. The gameplay loop that comes with it is really nice. All right, we gotta drink some water because my throat's starting to hurt. Okay. Who knows? Who's next? Diana Stanley. Back in the day, YouTube would yell at me a lot for my opinions on Diana Stanley. And while I have changed my opinion on her power level, because I think her ability is pretty good, and especially if you can just loop your 5 experience cards, it's nice. Recursion is really good for that kind of thing. However, I still think that she is absolutely dull to play. I think that Diana Stanley is just boring as hell. You spend like the first little bit powering up, and then you're like, all right, my portals are online. I'm going to win now. And that's cool. Like, she is a very good investigator at helping you win the game. But the playstyle strategy that she kind of provides is not what I want to do. I don't like that Diana Stanley's whole thing is that you are playing to not, like, it all comes down to what people say is, like, I'm looping ward of protections or denying existence 5s, right? Which is cool, but, like, if you need to loop, like, more than 2 ward of protection 5s, like, I get it. Your idea is that your fantasy is choking the game out, and, like, having the game not lose its resources. And I think that's really cool, but, like, I'd rather just win, right? Like, I'd rather just win, you know? And I think it's just, like, kind of a little bit dull, I think, for that kind of thing. And yes, the other problem I have with Diana Stanley is that a lot of her deck building is eaten up because you need them to play. You need the decks, like, you need to include, like, even, like, the not good ignoring cancels just because you gotta do it. However, I will admit that I have seen Diana decks that are really cool and fun, but for me, it's not the thing. But I'm like, I enjoyed watching them be played, but I probably would not have want to play them. Like Travis's Diana Stanley deck in our was it our Guardian run through Carcosa was a fun time. Like, I liked watching that, but she's just not it for me. I think Marie Lambeau is also kind of dull. And I can't really say why in, like, great detail, other than the fact that I've, like, never really got the drive to play her, apart from, like, most recently when I was like, I like Chemistry Set. Can Marie Lambeau use Chemistry Set? A 4/4 Brain Book Mystic is just, like, not interesting enough to me. I know with Marie Lambeau, you actually can take advantage of that 4 book quite well, right? Because I think that because she gets the secret cards in her thing, which I think is really cool. I think her ability is also fun to play with, but Mystic is my least favorite class. As you can tell, the fact that we actually haven't seen a Mystic up in the Blast to Play section. Really puts shit into perspective for you, doesn't it? It really, this is really making me, I'm like looking at it and I'm visualizing it and I'm like, well, I guess I really don't like Mystics. Because they're 3 for 3 right now. Yeah. But I just think, like, her gameplay loop is not the spiciest. I think her ability is powerful, though. I think her ability, I think that her ability is strong, and especially with all the spell slinging events, I think it can be pretty interesting. I want to try her again. Like, with every... I mean, I remember with Marie Lambeau, I was like, I'll try her with the Doom stuff that comes out, and then I was just like, no, that Doom stuff wasn't that good. It's like the opposite of the curse problem, right? Where, like, curses weren't made... And even with Hemlock Vale, curses weren't bad enough, right? Like, the downside wasn't actually a downside, but the upside was so good. And it's like the opposite with Doom, right? Where the downside is too much of a downside and the upside isn't good enough, right? Like, if we look at our good friend Ceremonial Sickle, for example, even just comparing that, like, 1-to-1 for, like, the Wicked Athame, right? I don't know. Yeah, she also can't play the upgraded Doom hand slot items. That's a weird choice. Yeah. I think the Four-Fist is definitely leverageable by the Mystic pool. They have so many random weapons that give you, like, +2 and 6 would be great. Rita Young? Fuck it. She's a blast to play. I love playing Rita. I used to hate Rita. Rita used to actually be one of my least favorite investigators. But, she got Sweeping Kick. She got sweeping kick, Chad. Do you remember that in Edge of the Earth when Rita Young got sweeping kick? Whoo! And then she got like Dirty Fighting, the expansion after that. And then she got like Bewitching, the expansion after that. That's pretty sick. Rita's just been like getting juiced like every expansion for the last few cycles. And she like now has an identity that like can really sing, which is great for her, because there was a time when she was just kind of like doing nothing at all, you know? It's one of those things that I really enjoy. Also the kill by evading. I did it on Patreon. I did a run through Dunwich where I was not allowed to take a fight action throughout the whole campaign. And I played Rita and Kymani, and it was really fun. It was really enjoyable. And so I have a lot of like good memories with Rita, and she can also play Sweeping Kick, which is probably my favorite card in Arkham, because it's just like so much juice. Yeah, she also got Long Shot. Like Rita's just been like getting a lot of new fun tools to play with that I think are really good. And I think if she gets like one more tool that she can one-shot the hoods with, she's going to be like, I think, legitimately arguable to like an A+ fighter. Which is crazy to say, but I do believe that. Because then if she doesn't have to use a piece for Sleeping Kick is auto-evade, it technically doesn't synergize with Rita. Put your finger and your glasses away, nerd, because it does. Because Rita's ability does not say successfully evade, it just says evade, so it doesn't care how the evade happens. Remember dealing with the hoods before Sweeping Kick happened? I do, you just didn't play Rita. That's how you dealt with that. For real? Yeah, no, for real. Yeah, no, actually, yeah. It does, because if it said after you successfully evade an enemy, I think in that case it would work that way. But because it's just it just says evade, it doesn't care how the evade happens, which I think is really neat. I mean, yeah, actually like elaborate distraction. So if you're surrounded by a bunch of enemies, you can use your I'm done running and elaborate distraction to deal 1 damage to each enemy. Wait. Elaborate distraction already does that? Don't worry about that. That's amazing news. Hey, I'm happy to help. It is amazing news. It really probably opens up Rita quite a bit more for that, which is awesome. All right, on to Dream Eaters, where we have a great metric F-ton of fantastic investigators. But let's see how much I enjoy playing them. Tommy Muldoon, he's enjoyable. I think he's an enjoyable investigator. There's a lot of fun that you can do with the guy. I think that like my problem with him though is that and I noticed this when I was playing with him last night when I was recording, because I was playing a Daryl and Tommy deck through Oz. Tommy kind of is like just a little bit fragile to stuff, you know? I think he's just like really good at like being like similar to Will York, because he's the inverse of Will York, right? Well, York is the 5/2 survivor guardian. Tommy is the 5/2 survivor guardian. Did I say the same thing? Oh, rogue guardian survivor. Sorry, I said the wrong thing twice. He's enjoyable in the fact that like you can like play a similar style to York, but also feel completely different, which I think is actually quite a big success when it comes to the design of Tommy in terms of how enjoyable he is to play. So that's cool. I don't like that you feel like you need to run... Like with Leo, I feel like I don't need to run that many allies. If I get just some value out of it, it's okay. But with Tommy, like, I don't think his card pool is distinct enough or as strong as Leo's. Because Rogue is a very powerful card pool. That you don't really feel it as much with Tommy. And then sometimes, like, Tommy can just be a little bit of a cluster. where you... Because I'm actually building a gun. I'm playing a gun Tommy right now. And I built around Becky for... This one's not really building around Becky. But, like, maybe I just got bad luck or my shuffle was bad. But I just was, like, having the worst time with enemies. But I also had 18 resources. So, I don't even know what happened there. But I'm curious to see how the rest of the campaign goes with that Tommy. To see where the problem might lie for that. But that was a little bit of a weird experience. And probably one of the worst experiences I had with Tommy. But I think overall the guy's still enjoyable. Mandy Thompson. I think she's enjoyable. I don't think she's particularly a blast to play. I think it's fun to win with her. I think it's fun to build the 50 card deck and just see like all the things that you can do with it, and then still find a way to just get like value on value on value, which is very easy for Mandy to get there. But at the same time, it's kind of just like, okay, you're here. You don't have that, like, cool trick that Daisy Walker has. You're not as just, like, brain dead get clues as Rex Murphy, right? I've never played a support Mandy, which does sound like it would be really fun. Maybe I can convince Travis. I mean, so actually we want to do... Bryn and I have a deck we're building that involves Mandy and Skids as a team, which could be a good time if we ever actually put it together. But yeah, I think Mandy just doesn't like do enough for me to really put her in a blast to play. And I also think she doesn't have like enough decks that actually cook in exciting ways for me. Yeah. It's that double card, isn't it? That tutors and shoots an illicit item. It's not that one. No. I actually, to be honest, I don't remember what it is right now, but Bryn would remember. So I'd have to ask him that. I'd have to ask him. But it is not the double, the Dirty Deeds. It's not that one. That does sound sick, though. I gotta remember what it is. But yeah, I think a support Mandy would be fun to play. I think that does seem like an enjoyable way to play Mandy that I haven't tried yet. Dude, this girl's going fucking nuts. Do you guys see this shit? This guy's going crazy. But it's actually, it's like, onto the question of the 30 versus 50. Travis has actually only played Mandy with 50 cards or our like 100 card Mandy deck. I don't really see a difference, which is weird. But like Travis is also like the master of knowing exactly what tool he needs at what time when it comes to searching. So I think Travis has that extra bonus where it's not so much an inconsistency to him, because he just knows immediately exactly what he wants to get. Like immediately. He's very good. Like he even says like his spike personality is consistency. So like in terms, or like consistency in card selection. So obviously like a 50 card Mandy isn't a problem to him because he's like literally in his wheelhouse. And that's just kind of like how it works. Everyone has their wheelhouses for how they deck build and play, and I think Travis really works well for Mandy. So the 50 thing isn't too much of a difference for him, but it's probably a bigger difference for like me compared to the two of us. Tony Morgan, this MFer is a blast to play. He is just, yeah, and I said at the start, like, I'm going to enjoy most of the investigators in this game, so it's going to be a very top-loaded list. I like killing things. I like killing things efficiently. I like looking down at the board and being like, holy shit, there were like so many monsters at the start of the turn, and then I killed them all, and now they're all dead. Even when I build a janky Tony deck, it still impresses me. There's two recent examples. The time when I played Standalone, the Pallid Mask, And I had quick draw holster, and I absolutely just killed 2 boss enemies in 1 turn, which was absolutely wild. And then also when I built a deck that I called God Tony, where I had the 2 precious mementos or whatever they're called, the things that you can soak and you heal if you succeed or fail by a certain amount. Those are juicy. That was a juicy build. I literally took so much damage and healed it and horror throughout the whole scenario. And Tony just also can do a really fun Joey the Rat deck and still be really good. So I think Tony Morgan is just a really, really good investigator. Luke Robinson, this MFer is also a blast to play. He's very good. He breaks the game. It's fun to cheat. It's fun to cheat, okay? Okay? It's fun to cheat. It's fun to make the game feel like a loser. It's fun to make the game feel like a loser, okay? And he has a great card pool, right? Like Mystic 05 is good, but then we see that Seeker 02 and we go, I can cook with this. I can do some fun stuff with this. There's different builds you can take with Tony. You can go like the Mystic build. You can do the book focus build. You can just do some crazy stuff. Trace, 10 months at the Golden Table. Thank you for your support. I hope you're having a great Friday, and thank you for, giving us a subscription. By the way, if you're watching this and you have not used your Twitch Prime subscription, consider throwing it at us. We would love to have the support. He also got a bunch of cool new toys to play with in Hemlock Vale as well. Luke feels like the secret character you unlock in a video game after you already beaten it. That's pretty funny. And I would say it's true. He's basically like Reptile from Mortal Kombat. Guy's crazy. And you can do a lot of cool stuff with him. Patrice, I think she's enjoyable. Yeah. I have nothing against her. But also, I feel like I've done it, you know? I feel like I've already done it. Hey, Lucas, 8 months at the Golden Table with your Twitch Prime. Thank you for your support. And we have a hype train. Oh, God, here it comes. Thank you, guys. Thank you for throwing your subs this way. If you have any, listen again, if you're watching, you want to throw a sub, I'll take it. Especially now we have a hype train, as we often call it here, a scam train. I would love your support. Or you could just, if you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, Patrice Hathaway, I don't know, what I really want to do with her that I haven't already done, right? That's kind of what it comes down to, because I've done the Summoned Hound. I did, there was a Patreon user, I believe his name was Bolash, who gave me a Patrice deck that I played through Edge of the Earth with. That was a fun time. I played the Mind's Eye Patrice, right? She's cool. But I don't think there's enough for me to really, jump to that next level personally. And I do think that she has also taken, her card pool hostage a little bit. But I do want to try to run her through Hemlock Vale for reasons that if you've played Hemlock Vale, I think that could be a very nightmarish challenge to give a shot to sometime. All right, on to the Innsmouth Conspiracy, and we got Sister Mary. I think Sister Mary's enjoyable. She was going to be kind of dull for me until the deck that I brought through our Carcosa draft, when I did Salami Arms, which is Martyr's Vambrace, I believe the card is actually, where I put the meat on my arms. And the Gurish support deck was a really fun deck that I actually really enjoyed playing. And I think that's the reason why she went from kind of dull to enjoyable. She also can now do things with like the Blessed Blade, but I still think there are better users of the Blessed Blade. So yeah, I think Sister Mary's enjoyable. Hemlock Vale obviously gave her a boost, but I still think not enough for me to like actually go too crazy about it. I still just think that like the reality is now, especially with like Ancestral Token, people like Zoey Samaras actually I think are just like better at Bless than Sister Mary is. And I'm not even talking about Parallel Zoey. I'm just kind of like I'm talking about like just regular Zoey can still just, oh, here she is. She's hanging out over here. Are still just kind of like better at it in terms of like, just Ancestral Token is a very good card. But with that said, the Martyrs Vambrace deck that I played with Sister Mary was a very enjoyable time. Amanda Sharp. She's a blast to play. Mostly because she's so powerful. Like, I love the idea of committing a Perception 2 to 3 tests during my turn. That seems like a very fun idea. I love her with Red Glove Man. I love her with, like, any skill. The reason why... Who, would you agree she has a problem with only one deck like Nat Cho? Who's that a question referring to? Who's that a question referring to? But the reason why she's not in my favorites is kind of because I feel like I've done it with her, you know? And like she doesn't have that like exciting twist that like Joe Diamond brings me. To Amanda. No, I don't think she has one deck because you can play Combat Amanda and actually do a really good job with it. So I think Amanda has a variety of different decks that you can do with it. You also can like do Red Glove Man. You don't need to do Red Glove Man. You can do hand size. You don't need to worry about hand size. I think Amanda Sharp has a large variety of decks that you can take advantage of with her. Don't sleep on Combat Amanda. It's actually insane. It's actually insane. She's very powerful with that build as well. But I think she's really cool. I think she's powerful. She's fun. I like the thing. It's one of those things where it's just like, I think that what keeps her out of my favorites is just because she's like so good that there's not like that twist that makes it interesting enough to me for me to really go too crazy about it. All right, we're going to get to some plot twists here. Remember you saying that people who shoehorn combat decks and Amanda are silly? Yeah, I can change my opinion. I'm a fucking human. I'm not. If I say something once, doesn't mean it's that way forever. You know, I'm a human. I'm growing. I'm learning. It might still be silly. Like it's probably not as good as the book version of her, right? But past Justin can be wrong. Isn't that crazy that human beings can make mistakes? Wow. Anyways. Trish is one of my favorites. I think I like her less than Joe Diamond. But Trish, in the past year, has become an investigator that I enjoy playing more. And the reason for that is because she has so many viable builds, it's insane. She's very fun. She has a fantastic card pool. I know people are scared about the 05 Seeker 02 Rogue, but I actually think the 05 Rogue 02 Seeker is stronger because the Rogue card pool is insane. So Trish doing what she does is just like there's so many nuts things you can do. She also did the thing that I was hoping she would do when I was building that Otherworldly Compass deck, and the deck was actually super viable and very good. It was very good with Trish Scarborough. So that's why I enjoy playing her so much, because I just get an idea, and I can try it in Trish, and it's going to work, and it's going to be very powerful, and it's going to be very fun to play. Her ability is also really enjoyable. So I think Trish this year is potentially cracking my top 5. We're going to have to see when this whole thing is settled and done, because we're about to see a flux of people joining my personal favorites this year, which does change from year to year, which means that some people are going to get cut probably from this list. But maybe not. We're going to see. We're going to be adding at least 3 more. So that means probably maybe Min is going to get the cut this year. Bet she can run the parlay stuff pretty well. I bet that too. Honestly, it's hard to not... Honestly, if you could tell me like any deck, and I'm like, as long as it doesn't involve guns, I'm pretty confident Trish can do it. Even then, a Dirty Fighting Trish deck would probably still get the shit done. You use Obfuscation, grab a clue, automatically evade the enemy. Is Dirty Fighting successfully evade? Because if it isn't, bam! Shoot that enemy in the head with the British Bulldog. Even the 25 automatic, you could probably get away with it. But I still think it's less viable. It's definitely a little bit more meany. All right. Dexter Drake. Y'all ready for this? Dexter Drake's one of my favorites this year. I've been having a great time with Dexter Drake. I love the hell out of this magician, man. He's really fun to play. And also, I feel like I finally got it. I was, in my most recent Dexter run, I feel like I actually solved the problem that I always felt I was having with my Dexter compared to Bryn's Dexter. And it was a great time. I was like, what the hell? This is incredible. I realized like what I was personally missing from my Dexter Drake game plan, which was just be aggressive as hell with what you play, but also like take turns to set up. You don't need to always be using your magician ability, but you also can't emotionally connect yourself to anything in front of you. And it was like, it made it really change for like how I focus Dexter. And he also has an incredible card pool. The 05 Mystic 02 Rogue is a really enjoyable time. And he's just really fun. Yes, the man still does die from damage a surprisingly large amount of time, which is kind of always surprising, even if it happens every time. You're still like, what the fuck, Dexter? How do you only have like 1 health left? But that doesn't mean that I don't enjoy playing him. It just means he's probably not as strong as like someone like, I don't know, Luke Robinson. But it still is a very enjoyable time playing with the guy. My boy. My man! I think I like Trish more than Joe. Actually, no, I think I like Joe more than Trish. Take early surrender him. It's $1 to play, 1 action to heal all your damage, no more deaths. I've done it, but the thing is that like he still somehow dies to damage. My Dexters just like they love dying to damage. Silas. I don't think he will ever be upstaged as my favorite investigator to play. Oh my god. He's just like he's my play style. Like they took me and they put it on an investigator. Like he was exactly what I wanted from a skill-based investigator, right? He's a powerful dude. I play him very well because I've played so many decks for him. And he is just like what I love from my skill-based investigators. Like, so, that's pretty sick. He has a fun ability to play around because you can weigh the thing as like, how many resources am I comfortable spending right now versus can I take the actions to get rid of it? He has book signatures as well, which I play with sometimes, but not too much. He's who I brought to the Skills Only Challenge, which at the time of recording hasn't finished, so I'm not going to say anything about it. But Silas is my man. I play him like probably twice a year. Justin, I've had trouble making a distinction between you and the Silas art. Any idea how to solve that? Yes, I'm fat. He's not. I'm a bit chunky. But Silas is not chunky. So if you look at the two and remember like chunky soup and be like, ah, yeah, okay, that's the one that looks more like a can of chunky soup. That's me. That's the best way of doing it. All right, on to Edge of the Earth. Daniela Reyes. I think she's a blast to play. I think Daniela Reyes is very fun. I think she's very powerful. I think she is probably the fighter I enjoy playing the most. Can't spell chunky without hunk. That is true. You also can't spell chunky without unky. And I'm your unky, us dude Dunsparce. Come over. Come over for dinner. Come see Unky Justin. But yeah, Daniela Reyes, she's probably my favorite way to fight. And I think that her... Silas was your favorite fighter? Silas is my favorite skill-based, maybe my favorite fighter. But she's my, her playstyle for fighting is very different than Silas's playstyle for fighting. She might be, I probably just said Silas was my favorite fighter, but Danielle Reyes is one of my favorite fighters as well. But she's not, like, skill-based, which is where I am, right? There you go, Helioptica, you said it. It's not just a fighter, Silas's life. It's true. Because he has a skill-based fighter, which is really fun, but hers is like the soak-based fighter. She is such a good tank, and she's like really good for that. I need to get 3 more investigators down here. Looks like some of these guys might make it. I mean, they might not make it, but I'll have to choose one to be there for the list. Yeah, I think Danielle is really fun. I have a good memory of playing her with Carson in the teamwork, but that's not really on Daniela's shoulders. But like for the Guardians, even though she is a survivor, her playstyle is very fun for me. Do we should get a Monterey style parallel for Danielle? I imagine we will one day. She's fun to play with. I think she's really cool. Excuse me. Losing my voice here. Yeah. I'm super down for Daniela. I think she's very fun to play. Norman Withers. This dude is also a blast to play. I don't have Parallel Monterey in here, do I either? Ah, frick. How dare they keep adding awesome Parallel Investigators for us to play with? Ah, he should be right here, and then we should have Parallel Rex over here as well. Oh, frick. I knew I forgot something this morning. Okay, I'll have to add those. But Norman Withers, there's a good handful of different builds you can do with Norman. Travis built a support Norman, which is really fun. I've built, there's the Astronomical Atlas. Looping Deductions is really good. Looping Ghastly, whatever that, the one with Marie Lambeau going, believe on it, you know? You can play Servitor with him, which is really fun. There's just a lot of things you can do with Norman Withers that I think are like actually kind of poggy. He is Ghastly Possession, yeah. He's just like really good from top to bottom, and he has a really good card pool. Who would have thought that like the best level 0 card pool in the game would be a great card pool to have an unlimited number of? Who would have thought, right? Who would have thought? Okay. Monterey Jack is honestly kind of dull. I don't think he's that fun to play with. And his ability is kind of like, I think it's a good design for an ability, because I think it makes a space that's like entirely his. I mean, he shares a little bit with Ursula. But I think that he's probably the investigator that feels his Edge of the Earth pool the most, right? I think he does. Yeah, I think it used to be Lily, but I think at this point now Lily is kind of goated in a lot of ways. So I think that leaves like Monterey Jack as the odd man out that still is like the one that feels the Edge of the Earth pool the most, I think. It's nice that you have the parallel version that you can now play with him, which I think is kind of neat. Oh, excuse me. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about Monterey. There's just like, I think that he's just like a little bit lacking, and his ability is not exciting. His upgraded bullwhip is exciting because it's a sweeping kick. But the regular one is kind of just there too. So I think that's kind of like the issue with Monterey Jack for me. Is he's just kind of like a little bit dull. Lily Chen, honestly, is a blast for me to play. Dude, there's more blast than enjoyable. I'm learning something about myself. Who would have thought I like Arkham Horror the card game? Who could have seen this coming? Not I, said the clam. Lily Chen has so many different builds that you can play with. She's my favorite Guardian melee fighter, which is good because that's kind of like what Guardian does now. I love her with Runic Axe. There was a Runic Axe where I did, I think it's the Saga one, and then I did the Elders, I think is maybe the one that lets you get clues, and I did that where I just was like using also an enchant weapon to make my number really high, and then I would just like get 3 clues while also killing an enemy. Pretty good vibes. Remember Knife Lily Chen? I fondly think of Knife Lily Chen. I still stand by Knife Lily Chen, and I think it really rounds out the level 0 deck. Luckily, you don't need to do that anymore. But, I mean, with limited card pool, I still think Knife is still a viable option for Lily Chen at level 0 if you are missing some things to fight with. There's just a lot of cool things you do. I played a Butterfly Swords deck with her, which was really fun. I played an Intrepid deck with her that actually kind of was like it was terrible. But it was like, okay, this is a place where I feel like Intrepid can live, which was kind of enjoyable. I've not played an event-based Lily. That sounds like a good time. But the thing that's really fun about Lily, that's really fun about her, is that you can take different paths depending on how you choose to upgrade, which I think is really exciting. We just saw Bryn do a Sled Dog deck with her, which while Travis didn't enjoy, I loved watching. It was a good time. But I also was playing Luke Robinson, so I didn't care about anything. So that does make things a lot easier when you don't care about anything. So yeah, I think Lily Chen's a blast to play. Bob, I think he was a blast for me. But he's just going to be enjoyable now because I think that, again, I think he died for the sins of other people for Eon Chart. I think there's a deck I built for Bob Jenkins ages ago that was inspired by a deck that Super Fang played, and him and I played through Dream Eaters together. And he was a Bob deck that he said one of the people he played with did, which was Joey the Rat. And you would like sell off your like old key rings mid thing to like mid investigation to scavenge them back, and then you also like blue lockpicks in Neon Chart and just keep doing like that. And like it was entirely fair, I think, because it was a lot of combo pieces to get into the position to get there. But when you did, you were like, this is really fun, and I'm having a great time. So I missed that part of Bob, but I think he's still a very enjoyable investigator play. He has a hook that's like specific to him, which means that like he's always going to have like something that makes him special. So like I can never see him going below enjoyable because he has like a hook that is fun to play with and he can help other people play with as well. Great investigator. Okay. So these aren't in order, so we have to go over Nat Cho. I think Nat Cho's enjoyable. It feels very good to punch someone and like kill them in one shot. Like 1-2 punch will always feel like a fantastic card to play, like Brute Force, just because of like the image it paints, where you just like literally punch a dude's face in, right? That's pretty sick. I also recently built a shotgun deck with Nathaniel Cho. I think Nathaniel Cho is less restricted than we feel. I think you just have to change your perspective on Nathaniel Cho. I think Nathaniel Cho can go beyond just the box we put him in. And I think at this point now, we need to become better players and admit that we can do different things with Nathaniel Cho. I think a lot of our perspective of what Nathaniel Cho is not the case that it was before. I'm pretty sure we could build a fantastic Blessed Nat Cho deck that you just like... Because we have this perspective that we need to build... we need to build around his ability to always be using it. But I think if you're just using his ability like a good number of times, you can get away with it. So I think my hope is to try out different Nat Cho decks that aren't as reliant as the one track that we put him on, because I think he has more than that. I think he could like play a fantastic Blessed Blade deck. So I think it's time to start exploring it, because I think that we have... we've put him in a box that I think was true earlier, but I think it's less true now. So I think we can do things. We can be better deck builders. I think it's 2024. I think we can do some stuff here with Nat Cho that's not just what we always expect from him. And that's my Nat Cho talk. Harvey Walters. I think he's enjoyable too. I don't think he's particularly a blast for me to play. I did have a blast when I played him in... Forgotten Age with Eric. It takes me a second. I have to boot up the old hard drive and remember all this stuff. And I also played him, slight spoilers, for the event-only challenge 2 that Britt and I have already recorded and finished and will come onto the channel eventually. And he was fun for that, but I don't think he's like... He doesn't like excite me in the way that these other ones do. Like, I think he's very powerful. I think he's an like A+ S tier investigator. But it's one of those things where I think like he gets his ability because all of his card draws better, while they get like their excitement out of the combos and stuff that you can do while being hyper efficient, you know? Great investigator, though. Winifred Habbamock. I'm torn on Winnie. I don't know if I've said this yet, but Winifred is who I'm bringing on one of our Dream Eater sides with Eric. And I'm very excited to play her, because I feel like she could be a blast to play. I think I am going to put her in Blast. I'm torn between enjoyable and Blast to play, to be honest. Have you tried putting all your assets into Underworld Market and going 30 commits? Here's my secret. I'm going to commit my assets. Winifred is the skill-based rogue. I think... the slight issue with it is that the skills in rogues are a little bit less exciting than like the survivor skills. But also, like, I think she's more than just skills too. She's actually like she's like a deck cycling rogue, because you just commit everything. You don't care what you do. You just commit it all. You know, you just go. I'm gonna commit these 2 cards. I'm gonna commit these 2 cards. She's the investigator who I played actually just recently. The Sleight of Hand Thieves Kit deck, which is very fun. I think it's a really good time. I think even though like my first instinct is to put her into enjoyable, I'm going to put her into Blast to play, because I do think after this Dream Eaters run, I am going to look back, because I think it's going to be my first full campaign. Second full campaign, because I played her when I played all the investigators, but I don't even remember that one, so I don't think... I think that was when I was like, I have to learn how to play Winifred better. But I think that she is going to... excuse me. I think I like her a lot. I think I'm going to end up liking her a lot after this. So I'm going to put her up there a little bit preemptively. Jacqueline Fine. She's fine. Do you guys want to see a cool picture I made? This is what I see of when I think of Jacqueline Fine. So, yeah. She's got a long neck, right? She's got a long neck. We all know that. And I thought that I dreamed this, to be honest. Because I thought I saw someone make this. So I was like, did someone make this on my Discord? But like, everyone's like, no, Justin, I think. But I was like, I'm 99% sure I've seen this before, so I must have dreamed it. Anyway, she's enjoyable to play. She's like, her ability is very powerful. Like it's a very strong ability, but I think overall there's nothing there. You know, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. I think that's what it comes down to. All right, everybody, say goodbye to Jacqueline Fine. Yeah. Stella Clark, honestly, I think she's kind of dull. I think there's still a lot of cool things you can do with her. But I think I've done them all. And I don't really get like, I don't really like have any more ideas of what I want to do with Stella Clark. I think she's cooked. Right? I think she's cooked for me. I think I've tried all the stuff. And I think I've been there, like done that, you know? I still think she has a good place in the card pool, right? In terms of like her power level, I think she's still relatively strong. I think there's a lot of cool decks you can build with her, like, you know, like Quick Learner, obviously. Drawing Thin seems like a fun time as well, because she can actually like not worry about the downside of drawing thin. But I'm done with Stella. Maybe I'll find something else to do one day, but right now I think I'm kind of cooked with her. I think it's kind of over. All right, Carson Sinclair. I think he's enjoyable. I don't think he's a blast to play. Mostly because, I'll be honest, I play Carson so I don't have to think, right? Like, I don't play Carson to... If you ever see me playing Carson during a game day, it's like, okay, I need to just like... It's the third session of the day. I've played 4 hours of Arkham with like 2 crazy decks before this. I'm just gonna like give my actions to other people and help us win the game that way. I don't need to think that much anymore, and it's like it's where Carson is kind of just there. So like I think he's very fun and he's very good, but I don't think like it's enough for me to put him into blast to play. So I'm gonna put him in enjoyable. Yeah, so I'm just gonna like, I love the guy, and I think he's well designed, and I like looking back at community sentiment when he was first spoiled, and I think that the community should take that as a learning lesson and look inward, and like just trust things, because like Carson Sinclair was a lot better than people thought, and was a lot more fun than people thought. And like, you know, maybe we don't need to be so reactionary, right? My only wish for Carson was that he had 4 brain, just so you felt less inclined to keep things to survive in your deck. Because that, once again, is kind of my issue where it's kind of like the Diana problem or the Sefina problem, where you kind of have to, like, a chunk of your deck space is all about, like, not dying because you have 2s in all your stats. And I think it would be more exciting if those 6 cards in your deck could be anything else instead. Vincent Lee. I'm a bit torn on Vincent, to be honest. I'm a bit torn. I think last year he was in my top 5. I don't think he's there this year. It's just a question of, do I still think he's a blast to play? I love his gameplay loop. Yeah, I just convinced myself. I love his gameplay loop, man. I was gonna say I was gonna talk about this when I got to from Carolyn, but working with the table to sequence your on the mens in the most efficient way that you can is probably like the coolest part of like what I want from Arkham. It's like it's just like trying to figure out how we can squeeze the most value out of stuff. Do I wish he had 4 fist instead of 3 fist? Yes. I think that the designers need to be less scared of 4 fist investigators. Because I don't know why they don't do it. I think he would be a perfect 4 fist investigator. Because this happens to me every time where I'm building decks for a campaign, where I have the easiest time finding my Kluver, right? Because there are so many people that usually have like 4 or 5 book, and then I have to get to my goon, and I'm like, I just played this exact deck. And I think that like they need to make it a priority to either add more. What stat would you decrease? I'd give him 3 book. It's easy. I'd give him 3 book. I would just switch the book and the fist. Like, I don't even think about it. Just, the man can survive with 3 book. Like, we can have a seeker with 3 book and it'll do fine, right? Because, like, the idea is that he makes up for the lack with the on the mens, right? But he's so much more interesting on the combat side, right? You're not taking his book? You need to open your mind. 3 book is great. You'll do so much with 3 book. And like like, what are you gonna do? Take it from his brain instead? No, the 3's also fist. You can't take it from his foot. Where are you gonna take it from? Yeah, so like I think that there's a fighter problem overall, and I think it would be mended by either giving fighters more interesting tools to fight with, or you can just start giving people more 4 fist just generally. You can do so much with 3 book, like losing a test on a 3-shot locations. Sounds like just a skill issue, TBH, brother. I think you just suck at Arkham. All right, next up, we got Kymani Jones. Kymani Jones is enjoyable. I think they're fun. I think I've done it, though. I've played Microscope Kymani. I've played Combat Kymani. I've played Flex Kymani. I've done all the Kymanis that I'm kind of into playing, and I think I'm kind of just, like, over Kymani for right now, but I think that it's they're an enjoyable investigator for sure. I think their ability is cool and fun. I think they have their highs and their lows for campaigns that work with them, which I think is also like really interesting. 2 pickpocketing Kymani does feel like heaven. That is true. Like, you know, like at the end of Eraserhead when there's that lady singing with the face and she's like heaven. That happens when you play 2 pickpocketings on Kymani. Kymani's really cool though. I think if you asked me last year, Kymani would be in a blast to play, but I think at this point now they just fall into enjoyable. But I think Kymani's a really cool investigator, and I think they did a good job with them. Amina Zidane. Oh no, Amina Zidane. She's kind of dull. I think I enjoy the concept of playing Amina Zidane so much that I'm going to leave her out of the I do not like playing with them. And I also, like, I've been lucky. I haven't actually had a bad experience playing with Amina Zidane, which is kind of wild. But I don't think I have any, like, memorable experiences playing with Amina Zidane, so she's going to kind of live with the dull section of her. Yeah, she has 3 in her stats. I want to try a mask build with her, but the problem with Amina is that you can't get rid of your masks, right? You can't get rid of the masks easily. And because the masks, I'm pretty sure, work differently than item slots, because item slots aren't a limit, right? But like masks are limit, which means you cannot play them. which is stupid. It's stupid. That's stupid. That should not be the case. It should just work like a slot. The fact that it's different is actually a mistake and bad design. But it's that way because that's how it was written back in 2015. And that's stupid. I'm sorry. It's stupid. And they should just change it. They are the designers. They can do whatever they want. They should just change it. Because it makes no sense from a KISS, keep it simple, stupid perspective of why they're different. They should just be the same, right? That should just be the way that it is. But it does work that way, unfortunately, which means that I think like the thing that would make that really interesting of being able to swap through masks as you see fit with Amina is something you cannot do unless you can teamwork with Joey the Rat, which does seem pretty good. I think the mask limit rule is a thing a person who never goes online will get wrong most of the time. I agree. And I think we should kill rules like that. I think rules like that should be shot in the head with a shotgun. And I think the people who defend those rules are doing it only so they can feel smart because they know them. I'm sorry. That's just the case. That's just the case of how it is. If you defend that rule, I honestly think it's just because you want to lord it over that you know that rule. I can't see a reason why that rule should exist. I can't. I just can't. It's not a good rule. So it needs to be killed. It needs to be killed. And it should be killed. All right. Amina's fine, though, but she's kind of just dull. Daryl Simmons, I think he's enjoyable. I'm honestly actually less... looking back over this list, I'm not surprised. But Daryl Simmons, I thought, was going to be like my guy. He's my favorite card pool. Survivor 05, Seeker 02. That's like my number one and my number two card pool. But the problem is that you have to like include a certain number of cards to make his deck function, to make his ability function, which means that your choices are limited because they need to keep, like, if he gets some more evidence options, we're kind of cooking. But it's kind of like choosing a chunk of your cards for you. I think he's very powerful. I'm not going to pretend for a second Daryl's not a good investigator, but he is a lot less exciting for me to play. And he is actually kind of, in some ways, I would say, kind of boring. But he's still very good. So that's why he's going to live in enjoyable for me, because he still is a strong investigator. And his art is sick. I love just like his pose, the colors. It's just like, it's a really good... It's a really good thing. I've been coasting with just empirical for evidence. I believe it, but the problem is, what if I don't draw my empirical? So that means I need to run some more evidence cards to fill those slots, lest I lose value with my ability, right? So then, if I'm only running empirical, that's only 2 of my 30 cards, which means that I need to find 2 of my 30 cards in my mulligan. And you also don't get a bonus from empirical hypothesis the turn you put it out. So every turn that you are not playing with your empirical hypothesis, you're losing value on his ability, which means that I need probably 2 to 4 more other evidence cards to really make sure that I'm hitting it with there to be an actual good thing. Because you'll remember the times where you're working with that empirical hypothesis, because our brains work that way, where we only remember the good stuff, but I am not programmed that way. I remember this time where it doesn't work, and then I want to work to make sure that doesn't happen. Everyone forgets when it doesn't work, when you don't draw your empirical hypothesis. And yes, you can rely on just your camera to get the job done, but that's not as efficiently as you can do, because now you're only getting 1 source of evidence a turn. And I want to optimally get 2 sources of evidence a turn so I can use it maybe for my test and my opponent, not my opponent's test, my teammate's test. And like that's why I think that it eats up that, makes it less enjoyable to me, where it's losing the value that it can come from that. because like it's making choices for your deck building, because I want to make the right choices for my deck building. You put fine tune on your camera? That is pretty spicy. That is pretty cool. Why does it work with my teammates? Because this is a game that you can play with other players. Shut up. I'm sorry. Like, it's better to have it work with other people. Like, why does it only have to be Daryl? This is not a solo game. It can be, but it's not. Charlie Kane. I haven't played him. I have not played Charlie Kane. I actually have not played Charlie Kane. I know, it's crazy, huh? I have no opinions on him. I'm sure I'm going to find him enjoyable at least, right? But it doesn't feel right for me to put him in there. I've not played Charlie Kane. However, on Tuesday, I'm going to be playing Charlie Kane. So get ready for that. But yeah, I've not played Charlie. So I don't feel good enough to... And I also haven't, like... I mean, like, I've seen Charlie Kane, but not for me to form an opinion on him. Please don't call him an all-one statted investigator, at least. He's not. I mean, he is, technically. He actually does have one for all of his stats, but he's not. He might be when I play him, though. We're going to find out. Wilson Richards, he was my investigator that I brought through Hemlock Vale. Are you guys... I'm going to give a warning. I'm going to have some slight spoilers for how that deck functioned in Hemlock Vale. So if you don't want to see, just mute me. I'll give you like a thumbs up when it's time, right? I was worried about Wilson Richards. Because when we were building our decks, I was like, we should build 3 flexes because I was a little bit worried about Wilson Richards. I wanted to build a combat Wilson Richards. That's what I wanted. Because I think a clue Wilson Richards is actually pretty easy to do. But I wanted to build a combat one. And I wasn't sure of how viable it was going to be. And this dude fucking crushed it, yo. He's so good at fighting. I was surprised. I was honestly surprised how often I was attacking at 9 with my top action on my sledgehammer. I was blown away. All right, thumbs up. You're good to unmute. You're good to unmute. I think that he's very cool. We're going to give this guy, I think he's a blast to play. That's where I'm going to put him right now because I just had a blast playing him. But I also immediately want to try... I want to try the clue version of him as well because I think that could be very fun. And then I also want to try a true flex Wilson Richards as well. But I think right now I'm really high on him. Kate Winthrop, I have not played, so I'm going to put her over here. Alessandra, I think she's enjoyable. I don't think she's a blast to play. I don't like that you have to include so many parlay cards. I think it'll become less of a bother when there's more than 8 ones that I want to play, right? I think it's going to improve as... I think Alessandra's going to improve as it goes, and I think we're definitely going to see parlay cards in future expansions, mostly because this new design team made Alessandra, so this new design team is probably considering Alessandra going forward. And that is true. Actually, Alessandra, I'm usually just wishing I was playing Trish instead. That is 100% the truth, and I'm not even going to pretend otherwise. You nailed it. One thing I do like about Alessandra is that every time I've played her, it really changes the normal structure for how I sequence my turns. So I find that part of her to be a blast, but I find her deck building right now to be a little bit kind of just flat. And I think we want to improve on that as it goes. Bryn's Alessandra deck in Hemlock Vale is really cool. And I think he did a good showcase of Alessandra in that. However, I think it's less about Alessandra and more about the assets that he was playing and like just the general rogue power. Okay. Kohaku. So I haven't played Kohaku, but I'm gonna make a prediction. Okay, I'm gonna make a prediction because I've seen Kohaku be played. I haven't seen Kate play, so that's why I'm going to put her down here. But I think Kohaku is going to be a blast to play. I think Kohaku is going to be a blast. I'm going to make a predictive guess here because he just seems really cool. I've already theory crafted some decks with him that I'm very excited to try out. Was it a blast to play next to Kohaku? Yes. So Kohaku was the first time where I was playing a campaign where someone was loading curse tokens into the bag and I never felt it, which is like spicy as hell. And I think it's like a great testament to the design team for how they were able to make a curse investigator, curse bless, that doesn't actually feel like you're playing with a curse investigator, which I think is a big success. So I'm going to put him into blast to play. I'm gonna make that shot right now. I'm gonna call it here. I think he seems really good. Hank Sampson. I do not like Hank Sampson. So I'm gonna be putting him into the I do not like playing them. I got a lot of problems with Hank Sampson. And Hank Sampson is probably the first time where I've had an investigator where I was actually disappointed with. Okay, so let's talk about Hank, because I will preface all this by saying that I think Hank is a strong investigator. Like, he has 5 fists, he'll be able to fight, he has a giant health pool, right? He can eventually get to 6 fist or 4 fist, depending on where you want to go, which are all still numbers that I think are really good. Hank's problem, for me, is that he is just... his deck building fucking sucks. And I think that his ability was also the wrong choice for how it works. Even if it is correct with how it works and not how my personal interpretation was when I first read it, but I'll admit that I was incorrect when I read it that way. I think that Hanks should be able to soak on his assets for other people. Because 1, it's more interesting, and 2, it stops this weird sort of deck building stipulation where you have to make concessions because you need to now balance, am I soaking myself? Like, because like you can soak for other people, but I think that when you can only soak on yourself, it actually makes it you can't soak for you have to make the decision of like, why would I soak for other people? They should just be soaking for themselves, right? So because like now I have to play my assets that I play, my like leather coat is not just is soak for me, but now I also have to think about my other people's soak for that, right? And I agree, it's not intuitive. And honestly, Derry K, you have made me feel a million times better that you also read it that way at first. Because I had the same initial thought that you did, right? If they were worried about him like doing like Pete Sylvester and Jessica Hyde, I remember I said earlier on when he was first spoiled for just the front side, I thought, hey, maybe his deck building will say no ally assets, right? So like you then have to like work with finding like your coat. You have to like find your healing while also still killing people, so it like makes sense for that, right? And it's one of those things where it becomes one of those things where like I think it becomes a lot less interesting. It becomes a lot less interesting with this, and I think unfortunately, his deck building, it eats both Silas's and Kelvin's, so the spirits and the innates, which is fine. Like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but like when I look at Hank, I see, why would I choose to fight with Hank when I could just fight with Daniela? Because Daniela's a lot more interesting and her ability is actually cool. Because I can go Resolute and have 6 fist. that's not a selling point for me as a player. I don't really care too much about that. Why would I play the soak game when like Kelvin like Wright kind of does the soak game better, and you can also just like play, you know, like the book side of it. Well, you could do the same with Hank, but then like why wouldn't you just do it with Kelvin? Because I think Kelvin's better because Kelvin scales when Hank wouldn't scale that same way, right? And I think that overall, I'm more emotionally invested in Hank because he is the survivor investigator. So that's why it comes in this way. But I think Hank just has like a lot of whiffs for me that I think that there was just a few decisions for Hank that I think ultimately I personally don't really vibe with. Someone else does though, and that's cool and all that, right? But I think that Hank, unfortunately for me, was a miss. And the first investigator that I would actually call a downright miss for me. I mean, I'm still going to play him one day, right? But I don't like Hank. I unfortunately just don't like the guy. Gloria Goldberg. But again, it makes me actually very happy that you have the same interpretation I do. Because I felt like I was taking crazy pills. So you not play Mike? I played Hank twice. I've played Hank twice now. Gloria Goldberg. I think she's very powerful. I think her deck building's really good. It's actually kind of funny. Most of my Gloria that I play now, I think I play like Flex Gloria just to make it a bit more interesting because I think the reality is that Gloria's kind of dull, right? I think she's just kind of dull, isn't she? She's very strong. Arguably one of the strongest in the game. Her ability to mitigate the game is insane. But she's kind of just like a little bit boring, right? She's kind of just like a little bit like, no thank you. But she's very strong. But she's also a mystic. And as you can tell, I'm not big on the mystics. I'm not a mystic guy. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Gloria is very overtuned. I'm honestly convinced they haven't printed her because they're trying to figure out how to make her less broken, you know? My thought is they should just make her ability. I think they should just nuke her, to be honest. I think they should just nuke her. And they should like make her signature. If you see it while searching the deck, you Ancient Evils. Like just like absolutely nuke her. Or alternatively, they should just go wild and make a different version of her. I think this Gloria ultimately was a mistake. I think that they should just print a completely different version of her. That would actually be kind of wild. If the Gloria in the box was just different. But if they nuke her 6, remember book stuff still exists? True, but most people aren't going to play with book stuff, right? They're playing with the official stuff that like comes out in the boxes. The book stuff, while official, is not really actually official. I think that Gloria Goldberg is presenting an issue where every version is just like so good. So, I love her art though. Her art's fantastic. I also love her character. Her character is fantastic. There's a lot I love about Gloria, but I think at this point now I've kind of done it all, but I'm going to play her again and again because she's still just powerful. But most people don't have book cards and probably don't even know those exist. That has been my experience knowing Arkham players. I'm going to be honest with you. You guys are probably a fraction. Like, right, like Like, we are small compared to, like, for example, like Mythos Busters, their Discord. Their Mythos Buster is pretty big. But they're probably even small in the grand scheme of things as well. There's probably a lot of people who just buy Arkham and play Arkham and say, this is fun. I'm having fun. Thank you. I'm having so much fun playing this Arkham game. And they're still not removing Doom from cultists. And they're still like, this is tough, but I'm having fun, you know? That we are, like, small and compared to probably the entire community as a whole. Yeah, they're just hanging out, having a good time, not removing Doom from cultists when their agenda advances. Yeah. Roland Banks, Parallel Roland. Honestly, I do not like playing him. And the only reason is that I'm a fucking idiot. And I'm being honest with you. I cannot play Roland Banks while streaming. Because I will get it wrong so much of the time. Like, I will forget every directive. Chat will be like, you forgot the directive. And then I'll go, oh yeah, you're right. I did forget the directive. I need to rewind my entire turn, right? And that's why I don't like playing him. It's one of those things where I think he's cool. I think he's really cool. I love watching Travis play him. But for me, I can't do it. I don't think I'm going to include him in my least favorite video. Because I don't think he's my least favorite investigator. I just don't like playing him because I'm an idiot. That's what it comes down to. There's a lot that goes into while streaming. That means that I'm very forgetful because I'm doing so many things at once. As you guys have probably seen in my videos where I'm talking to chat, checking levels, making sure I'm still recording. Did my wife text me? You know, like all this kind of stuff that I'm balancing, and I can do most investigators, but I don't think I could ever play Parallel Roland on stream. I don't think I could. We got ourselves... Oh, do I have the other... I don't have the other parallels in this. You know what? I think we're gonna... If they're not on here, I'll read them. Or at least I'll try to sum up their ability. Parallel Daisy. I think she's kind of dull. I'm not actually like a Parallel Daisy hater. I've had surprising amount of success with her ability. Her ability, I think, is actually quite powerful. But... it's one of those things where I think she is worse. I think she was also, unfortunately, caught in the crosshairs of the geared up taboo. Which, is it warranted? I don't necessarily think so. I think geared up is a fun card. The highs and lows of geared up, I think, should be good. I think I would rather they just kept it what it was, but like made geared up 2 experience or 1 experience, right? But I think that we can all agree that she is kind of dull. Like, that text box is blank for the majority of the campaign. So, like, I think that's kind of like where it lives for that. Where's Susie? Susie's not real. I'm sorry. Susie didn't make the cut. I don't think she's real. How do you purchase that deck creation for 2 XP? Remove that then. Remove the deck creation thing. Like, that's easy, right? Like, if I think they killed the card and not in a good way. I think they could have done something else first, right? I'm at a point where I ignore all taboos that make no sense to me. I honestly think, I mean, like, more power to you for that, but I think that's kind of actually an issue. That I think this fan base is getting a little bit too snooty. And I think if you're going to play Taboo, I think, unfortunately, you have to do all or nothing. Otherwise, you don't really count for conversation online about it. I think that's just the reality. I mean, maybe that's just my opinion. And maybe it's just another one of my spicy hot takes. But I think as soon as you start picking and choosing stuff, you are no longer part of the conversation online. And I think that's just kind of like how it works. Because as soon as you start playing by your own house rules, you're not really actually like playing by the rules anymore. So that's just my opinion, though. Like, more power to you to do it, but it means that now, like, if you say something, I can't trust that kind of, like, are you playing it with the same way I'm playing it, right? Because if you say I'm playing taboo, I'm like, oh, you're following these rules. If you're saying playing untaboo, you're following those rules. I'm like, I'm playing taboo-less, but I don't use geared up that way. I'm like, well, we can't talk anymore. Like, it's not the same, right? So that's just my thoughts when it comes at least to, like, how I focus on conversation and dialogue with this game, and how I approach what I assume people are talking about with other dialogue. Yeah, because the taboo list specifically says it's all or nothing. And them's the breaks. Them's the breaks. Parallel Agnes, I think she's a blast to play. She's like, I think, the perfect spell slinger. Kohaku, I think, is also a pretty good spell slinger, but I think like Parallel Agnes is like the spell slinger. She's very good at what she does. She's also really fun. She can play a lot of cards that are conventionally like unplayed by other people. So it's like one of those things that she's just like, I think, a home run parallel. I think she's probably one of the most successfully designed parallel investigators, while being like literally actually the parallel version of Agnes Baker, right? Where like it's like instead of horror, it's the health for her that becomes her whole thing. So I think it's like a very elegant design. Every time a new Mystic event comes out, especially if it costs 2, like the new Drain Essence, you're like, I can play this in Parallel Agnes and have a great time doing it. And I think that's really nice. Parallel Skids, my boy, get your ass up here. Sorry, Min, you're gonna get bumped down to a blast to play. Just them's the breaks, kids. Them's the breaks. I love Parallel Skids O'Toole. I have so much fun playing this investigator. He is one of my favorite investigators to play. And he is the best at big money because he's also the most interactive way to play big money. And his ceiling is so high and his decks can get so good. But he's also like fragile too, so you can like have some risk with it, which I think is really fun. And just all the gambling is really good. I loved Eric's Eric's reactions to how much I was gambling with Parallel Skids. And then also, I mean, yeah, I usually don't even usually build like the 6 Luckies build, but you definitely could. Maybe I should try that instead of my usual Skids build. Try something a bit new with the son of a bitch. But this guy is a blast. An absolute blast to play. He's my guy. I can play the same deck every time with Skids O'Toole. And Parallel Skids, and I would have so much freaking fun with it. He is just like really good. This is a weird top 5 for me this year. I love Dexter Drake just sneaking in over here. Sorry, wrong way. But the taboo playing only on the altar cards like that gun that has no one uses, or all the icons says a specific one is a must, and I see as a patch more than a taboo list. I'm sorry, it's not. It's not. It's a taboo list. So you can do it. Like, I'm not saying you can't do it, but I can't engage in conversation like my expectation for conversation is when someone says I'm playing taboo, they're playing with all the taboo list cards. Or because then I'm like, oh yeah, that's really cool, you're doing this. Or like it's like you're like, I'm playing no taboo, and I'm like, but you're playing the Winchester. You're like, oh yeah, no, but I'm using the rule. I'm like, well, you're not like actually, like, I can't now interface with this deck with the logic that this is the taboo list. Like, you can do it. It's just it changes my perspective of communicating, and it makes, I think, discourse harder to like grok when you're talking with people in the communities and all that. Parallel Wendy, I do not like playing them. I think that they are... Sorry, you got to be on the front because you were one of those things. Yeah. I just think she's like bloated as hell. I think she's powerful, but I think like I don't like her design. I don't like what it brings to the table. I don't like her. It's just too wordy. I think that as a whole, all the investigators in this game feel very tight. But Parallel Wendy feels like a custom investigator. Even just like Parallel Jim has a lot of text, but I think he still feels like an investigator, right? Like in this game, like Parallel Jim is wordy. Notably, Parallel Jim was also like the most viewed parallel investigator and has the most conversation about him because he is so interesting. But like he doesn't feel as custom as Parallel Wendy Adams feels, right? I feel like Parallel Wendy Adams is kind of just a little bit too much. There's just too much. And like, yeah, like even this like add title memento to your deck on like the front side. I understand why it's there because you can do the unparalleled backside. But I think they did that more elegantly with Jim Culver. I think like the parallel flip on him was really nice. But I do not like Parallel Wendy Adams. She is poopy. I do not like her. Hey, Parallel Zoe's here. I think she's enjoyable. I think she's cool. But I don't know. I've played her through a campaign, actually, but I don't know if I would say she's a blast to play anymore. I think she's good, but I think I've done it, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I think I'm like, I'll play her again, and like I like having the choice between the two Zoes because they do feel very different. But it's not really enough for me to really interest me too much. You know, I think she's kind of just like somewhat in the middle for me. So that's why she's literally in the middle. Parallel Jim Culver. I've only played him once. I think I'm also going to put him into enjoyable. I want to do a campaign with him. But he seems really fun. And like, if I do this again next year, by the way, should I do this every year, Chad? Should I do this every year? Should this be like the opposite of the power tier list? So we do like power tier lists in like December. We do love tier lists in like June, July. I'm seeing a lot of yes. Okay, all right, we'll do it. I'll keep it in the rotation. Yeah, so we'll see how he is next year. I think that could be a fun thing to check out. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah. I mean, he seems fun. He seems fun as hell. I liked when I did my standalone with him, but I have to see how diverse it is for the guy to really click with me. Parallel Ashcan Pete. This guy. I think I'm going to put him in a blast to play. He's so strong. His guitar is insanely good. I felt like I was taking crazy pills when I was reading Ashcan Pete, and then I went online to like see other people talk about him, and like everyone was talking about like Makeshift Trap, which is certainly cool. But like I was just like I'm pogging up for this guitar. It's probably this like the single strongest like signature card in the game, and he gets to start with it and play. It's wild. He's so powerful. You get so much control. We had to pay 5 experience for that control. It's insane. We used to have to pay 3 experience, but then they made it 5. And he just gets it in play. And it heals him? And it heals him. Which is crazy. It's a very powerful investigator. I do think that the other thing that makes Ashcan Pete Parallel really exciting to me is that he is taken in an archetype that at this point before him was absolutely dead. Was absolutely dead until he existed, which was incredible, right? Like now, like there was like so many cards that would forever just sit in your binder, not doing anything. That now suddenly you can play them in a deck, and it actually like they do very good, which is awesome. Right? Like that's kind of like what you want. From the perspective of a card designer, right? You want to be able to just like give life into your collection. You can give like life into your collection, into the players' collections that way. And I think like Ashcan Pete is a very successful design. If the guitar, like considering though also that the guitar I think is a little bit too strong. Just having people finally catching up to Hiding Spot being amazing. Hiding Spot is pretty good. I think I'd still rather kill. I mean, but like I think that's the problem too with Ashcan Pete, that like he also can't kill enemies. I did put him in S tier though, just because I think that for my power ranking, because that guitar is just so strong. Hot takes, like at least half those cards are already good without Pete. Or actually try them in a change me. I think that's not that hot of a take. I think that could be fair. Pete just makes them like the resource value of them goes like, sorry, not the resource value, because the resource value stays the same, but like the resource value in terms of like card, what's the word for that? Card advantage stays positive, which is good. Okay, I don't have the other guys. I don't even have like little pictures for them. But I would probably put both Parallel Rex and Parallel Monterey into the enjoyable right now, because I think that they are interesting designs, and I'm curious to try them out in other ways. With that though, this is my like investigator tier list. How much I like playing each of them. I'm going to once again put a little asterisks on Parallel Roland, because I think that he's, like, I think for my tier list for, like, the list video, it's going to be Stella. It's going to be these 5. Because I don't hate him. I think his design's really cool. Because of this. No, and Susie isn't a real investigator? No. So the real reason, I mean, like, if we want the truth, if the Barkham and Susie were in this video, they would all be down here. And I would just be like, I think they're neat, but they're a little bit too jokey. The theme doesn't resonate with me, and the gameplay mechanics aren't cool enough for me to actually want to play with them or build with them. Because with Susie, you kind of are just like, you're basically doing a draft. And I can just do that with real investigators that are actually interesting to play and build with. So I just say they're not real, just for simplicity. And then these are my top 5, baby. Good job, Dexter. I'm so proud of you. I love you. I love you, Dexter. You're so cool. He's really fun to play. Dexter's really cool. I mean, you can still be up front. Just I'll scroll through. We had 3 Mystics make the blast, but a lot of Mystics down in Dull. Excited to play Charlie next week. That'll be fun. I'm also excited to play Kate. I have a Kate deck list coming out tomorrow if you're watching on Twitch, but it's been out for a few months now if you're watching on YouTube. So I'm excited to try that deck with her. That should be a fun deck. Sweet. All right. Well, we'll call that this. Thank you for hanging out. There is a link to the my tier list in the video description. I should have said that at the beginning of the video, but I was just so hyped to start talking for 2 hours and 40 minutes. So we're just going to kill it like that. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by subbing on Twitch if you're watching live right now, commenting on the video, being in the Twitch chat if you're, this is a great way to support the channel too, liking the video, subscribing to the channel if you haven't already subscribed, and let me know in the comments who your favorite investigators are, because, everyone has their own personal favorites, and I'd love to hear who yours are. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.